very much, Olivia. Good afternoon to all of you. My name is Arvind Wadhera. I work at the European Commission, and I have been involved in the proposal, as Olivia said. 10 minutes is probably a safe bet because once I start going, people get indigestion, so we'll avoid that threshold. But bon appetit in any case. I think in terms of the Commission perspective, I think there will be some questions, and I'll answer specific questions. In terms of what Mr. Bodhi just said, in terms of what we've done with the feedback we've had from the Parliament, I think it would be, in the course of the negotiations, we can look at each of the suggestions. We have taken quite a few on board. Some we have not been able to, but the process is ongoing. So that is not an end game in itself. I think it's a process that has been launched. Generally, I mean, I think that 10 minutes is probably not going to be adequate, but what is quite important from our perspective is that we see statutory audit as a public interest function. And that is our main vision and our main driver in terms of making these proposals. We do appreciate that when a public interest function becomes a business, it is a very delicate balancing act. And I think the friction that we're seeing between business, and in some instances very big business, and the public interest function is a natural one, and it needs to be managed. And at the same time, we need to remain sensitive to these conflicts, if you want to call them that. I would just say that there are frictions that need to be managed on an ongoing basis. Without going into details of specifics such as mandatory rotation, pure audits, I mean, I can speak to you for a whole week on these issues and explain to you what the justification or what the rationale behind this is, but of course we leave this for the panel when you have specific questions. I think my request to the panel here is really to look at this with some perspective. It is a public interest function. Now, if you're in the profession, you have a certain view on things. If you're a big four, a firm, you have a certain view on things. If you're an exterior firm, you have a certain view on things. Everyone believes that there are certain aspects of the current status quo that are unfair, and everyone believes that there are certain aspects which are perfect. So I think from that perspective, we have to recognize the different views that people have, and this is not just this is not a black and white situation where there is a good and there is a bad. What may be good for one group of stakeholders is actually not working at all for the other stakeholders, and any changes that might work for the next set of stakeholders would actually backfire quite badly on the first one. But the underlying hypothesis for all that is that the current paradigm is perfect. I think that you have to look at it from our perspective, and I take Mr. Bodhu's point that auditors are not regulators, but statutory audit is a public interest function. We have gone through a financial crisis. We have gone through clean audit reports weeks before institutions collapsed. We have to ask ourselves, the next time round, will we be better prepared, and will the auditors be fulfilling a more useful function, and will an audit report plug the expectation gap that actually exists? Audit quality, the famous mantra that we keep hearing, it cannot and will not be our objective to destroy or to impair audit quality. That would be completely counterproductive. But what is audit quality? Can audit quality exist without independence? Or, more importantly, you may say that you're independent. What about my perception? I'm a reader of the accounts, and I see this audit firm has been in place and has been providing all these services. You might have all the safeguards in place, but I still do not perceive you as being entirely independent. So how do we hardwire that into a legal framework to ensure that there is absolutely no doubt about that. We find it extremely perplexing that the incumbents want to preserve the status quo because that is their business model. We find it extremely perplexing that there is such resistance to change, or even the willingness to consider changes, to see, okay, there are some reasons for these changes, and we need to look at these, and we need to think these through and see exactly what the collateral will be. And when we ask these questions, what's very interesting is we never actually get any specifics. We get some very general comments. Oh, this is going to hurt the economy. Oh, this will have a lot of unforeseen consequences. And I always ask the question, can you be more specific, please? And so far, I haven't had a specific answer. Where are we in the process? The Commission adopted its proposals on the 30th of November. The negotiations have now started in the co-decision procedure. We are in the Council under the Danish presidency, and we are going through the two instruments. In parallel, we are expecting, I think it's tomorrow, that the first exchange of views in the jury committee in the European Parliament, and we have been speaking to quite a few members of Parliament, just as everyone else here has been, and we're trying to get a good feel for what the concerns are. This is a democratic process, and we do not have our ears and eyes closed. We do not have our hearts closed, and we certainly don't have a closed mind on this. But if we are looking at this from a constructive perspective, I would urge you and implore you to do exactly the same. And I have to say that we have not seen much evidence of openness on what you call the controversial proposals. I think what has to be done is you have to see why we have those, and if you can come up with better alternatives, we will certainly consider them seriously. But if it is just slogans, I don't feel that we will be able to respond in a constructive manner. Thank you very much.